My name is Edvin. I'm the international manager here at Hatch and PFCLA. My role is to consult with our international intended parents about the international aspects of surrogacy, as well as host a number of events around the world where we teach intended parents about the intricacies about this process. For me, the importance of choosing an egg donor had a lot to do with the medical aspects. Every intended parent is different, which is great. We all have different requirements. For me, medical was the main point because, she's the genetic link of the child. That's where we get 50% of the genetics. So for me, that was important, but I know that other intended parents have much other expectations or requirements, such as education and looks. So it really comes down to what the intended parents think is important, and there's no right and wrong, which I think is important to point out. So my relationship with my donor is kind of informal. We send a kind of update once a year from a birthday, from a milestone, not because we have to, but because that's how I prefer to have that relationship be. It's very different from intended parent to intended parent, but usually the egg donor relationship is much less involved and close than the surrogate relationship with the intended parents, but it can be whatever the intended parents and the egg donor wants to, but a semi-anonymous to anonymous kind of situation is most common. For me, the most important aspect of the surrogate, I think, was that she kind of lived a normal, stable life in all aspects. So socially being, having a support system, having a job that supports her financially, having a partner or husband. It isn't necessary, but for me, it was nice to have that kind of support as well. And then just kind of the average person. I was really looking for the average person to go through this journey. Surrogates are great, but they have families, they have jobs, they have their own home life, which is a good thing. Some intended parents are a little bit worried about the stressful aspect of being a surrogate and having all of these obligations. But for me, that is what I was looking for. Somebody who has, the normal life, which I think is a great grounds for, doing surrogacy when you're stable in all these aspects. My advice to intended parents looking for a surrogate is to be open-minded. Some intended parents have a long list of requirements, some do not, but I think it's important to be open because the more open you are as an intended parent to geographies, to different situations, marital status, the easier it's going to be to match you with the surrogate. So putting out these elaborate lists of requirements that don't really impact your journey is just making it much tougher to find that perfect match. So I would recommend intended parents just be open, listen to the match specialist, and kind of focus more on the surrogate herself rather than all of the different background aspects of her profile, because your agency at Hatch or wherever has already done that work before. She's already qualified as a Hatch surrogate. She's been through all of the screening process. So trust the match specialist and be open, and you're going to find a great match. So I think the most rewarding aspect of the journey was, like for all intended parents, having, seeing your baby be born in the delivery room, getting that baby handed over to you after a process that can take, up to 2 years. That's really rewarding. And also building the relationship with the surrogate. That was unexpectedly rewarding. I had one opinion on how that would look like. I thought that, great, I have a surrogate. We will be close during the surrogacy and then we don't need to know each other anymore. But that changed a lot during the journey. So that was really rewarding to get a new family member, basically, a new cousin or what you will, that's a part of our family now. And the most challenging aspect is definitely how the situation changes. You're going through this journey, there's going to be a lot of different people involved in different stages. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with all of that. You think, we're switching up a little bit. It's the legal aspects in the kind of last end of the journey, but it's the matching aspect in the beginning, in the forefront. So a lot of times we will move on to next steps, and it can be hard as an intended parent to kind of follow that. So I needed a lot of guidance, understanding like, okay, what is the next step and why are we there and what's going to happen during that aspect. Well, for intended parents that want to get started, my advice would be definitely look over and make sure you have the financial aspects covered. That's one of the biggest hurdles of getting started, having the financials in place and being able to cover the costs of this journey. So that's one of the first things. I would also advise intended parents, once again, to have expectations, but discuss with the agency or match specialist or the one you're consulting with really what the journey is about. So educate yourselves a little bit. Surrogacy is much different than you might have read about on the internet, on Facebook. Facebook is great as, you know, one resource, but there's a lot of things that don't match up with that picture of surrogacy. So just be ready to kind of be amazed and be ready to have your thoughts kind of transformed into what the surrogacy journey actually means for you as an intended parent. Well, I decided to join Hatch for several reasons. One of them was that they have the in-house clinic, Pacific Fertility Center, Los Angeles, the clinic that I used myself for my first surrogacy journey before I even started working at Hatch. That relationship is amazing, and having both of those in-house, having gone through the journey myself, is an amazing resource that I lacked in my journey. So that is one of the things, and then just 30 years of experience. Like Hatch has done over 8,000 journeys, created in 1991, biggest database of donors in the US. So it's just an amazing place with a lot of experience and knowledge, and to be a part of that and tap into that knowledge and share that with intended parents, that's what really alerted me to start here. So if surrogates want to work with international intended parents is a question we get a lot during consults. Intended parents can be very worried about, especially the difference of geography, like distance. But the thing is that surrogates are usually very much excited by the opportunity to work with somebody international because they can get an insight into a new culture in a new country. So this is something that surrogates rather get excited by than, you know, feel like they don't want in their journey. So I think for international intended parents, they don't have to worry about that aspect. We have a lot of great surrogates who definitely want to match with international intended parents. So international intended parents do not have to come to the United States for their clinical screening and testing. We do have partners that we work with. They have hubs all over the world where we can do that work, and it can be shipped over to the United States. We do encourage our intended parents to come to the US and come to the clinic to see how the clinic looks and visit us, meet the doctors. It's not mandatory, but that's another way to go. So either path is viable. So if you come to do the testing in the US as an international intended parent, you need to be in the US twice. Once for the testing and blood semen collection, and then we need you before the birth of the baby. So if you do all of that work abroad at a hub clinic or partner clinic, then you just have to come once to the US, which is before the baby is about to be born. International intended parents, that after birth there will be a subsequent legal process, which is usually called the parental establishment process. The intended parents will have the full support of their legal team to take you through that work. We have attorneys at Hatch that we work with and refer to the intended parents. If the intended parents wish to, international or domestic, they can choose their own lawyer, which is a great way if you do have somebody you trust or like particularly well. Except for that, it's a kind of quick process, takes about a month, and there will be full legal support during the whole process of getting the court orders, any pre-birth documentation, ultimately getting the last birth certificate, and then returning back home. Some intended parents return back home via applying for a US passport, while others go to their local embassy or consulate and they get a temporary travel document from there.